Greetings, adventurers! I'm Max, the Master of Dungeons. You may recognize me from my Facebook page, where I share all kinds of cool information about my experiences as a player and dungeon master in the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, as well as any other cool thing related to Dungeons & Dragons that I can get my hands on. Right now, though, you are watching the very first episode of my brand new vlog, Once Upon a Tabletop, where not only will I be sharing cool things from the latest edition of Dungeons & Dragons, but I will also be answering questions from gamers new and old. This being the very first episode, we're going to walk you through step-by-step character creation for a 5th edition character that will be legal in the Adventurers League organized play from Wizards of the Coast. Let's get started. Alright, now the first thing you gotta do is you gotta go get yourself some literature. Now I don't mean go out and buy the complete works of William Shakespeare. It's do Wondersphere Old English, but it'll do nothing for your character creation. What I mean is you've gotta head over to DungeonsandDragons.com and download the free PDF of the basic rules for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. On the other hand, you could also go down to your local gaming store and you can pick up a copy of the Player's Handbook. The Player's Handbook is a lot more extensive, it's got a lot more options in it when it comes to character creation, but on the other hand, it's also $50. Free, $50. Free, $50. Most people like free. Now once you got your literature, you're ready to head on to step 0. Haha, this is step 0 before step 1. Step 0 is you have to have an idea. You have to have a thought, some kind of blinking clue where your character is going. What kind of character do you want to play? Do you want to play a dwarf? Do you want to play an elf? Do you want to play a human? Do you want to play a half-lizard mutant chicken with robot feet? You have to have an idea. So, before you even hit step 1, take step 0 and think about what kind of character that you want to create. Then we can move on to step 1. Alright, now that you've completed step 0, which is thinking of an idea, now you're ready to move on to step 1, which is choosing your race. Now choosing your race definitely plays into your idea. If you wanted to play a dwarf, well obviously you're going to choose your race to be a dwarf. If you wanted to play an elf, then you're obviously going to choose elf as your race. Now, over here in the basic rules, you've only got 4 options for race. And those options are dwarf, elf, halfling, and human, alright? Those are the only 4 races you get to pick from if you go with the basic rule. On the other hand, if you go over to the Player's Handbook, you get a much more diverse selection of races. You've got dwarf, you've got elf, you've got halfling, and you've got human, just like in the basic rules. And then you've got some other races. You've got races like the Dragonborn, Gnome, half-elf, half-orc, and tiefling. The important thing about choosing your race is not only does it kind of determine what your character looks like, but it also gives you a set of racial traits. Things like dark vision, Fey ancestry. These racial traits actually play into your character's play and combat in a gigantic way as you go along. You also get certain racial traits that affect your ability scores, which we'll go on to later in step 3. Now let's move on to step 2. So now that you've chosen your race, you gotta choose your class, alright? Your class is kind of like your occupational specialty within your adventuring party. So basically it's telling everybody else whether you're the healer, whether you're the fighter, whether you're the guy that sneaks into the camp ahead of everybody to do some recon before going into a dangerous situation, whether you're the guy that sits up on the hill and scouts. So these are the kind of things that kind of get determined by your class, so choose carefully. If you're picking out of the basic rules, you only got 4 classes to choose from. It's nice and easy. You can either be a cleric, you can be a fighter, you can be a rogue, or you can be a wizard. It's basically the same 4 classes that the game originally came out with back in 1974. On the other hand, if you take it out of the Player's Handbook, you get a much more diverse selection of classes. You've got the barbarian, you've got the bard, you've got the cleric, you've got the druid, you've got the fighter, you've got the monk, you've got the paladin, you've got the ranger, you've got the rogue, the sorcerer, the warlock, and the wizard. So much more diverse selection of classes out of the Player's Handbook than you get out of the basic rules. Now the 3 things that I get from my class is I get some class features, proficiencies, and then of course you're also going to get the 3rd most important thing is it's going to determine your maximum hit points at 1st level. Obviously, the more hit points you have, the longer you can last during combat, but again, that's going to be determined by your class, so that's why picking your class is also very important. Once you're done picking your class, you're finally ready to move on to step 3. And step 3 is determining your ability scores, which I mentioned earlier. Now you're probably wondering what the heck ability scores are. Ability scores determine how good you are at certain abilities. Your character has 6 abilities. These 6 abilities are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, alright? I'm going to go into a little bit of explanation on a few of these. Most of these should be pretty self-explanatory, so I won't spend too much time on those, but I'm going to explain the ones that may be a little vague. Strength. How hard you can punch, how much you can lift, that kind of thing. Dexterity is how nimble and agile your character is, and also kind of how fast they react, how good their hand-eye coordination is. It's that kind of thing. So that's what your dexterity is. Everyone needs constitution, because your constitution modifier also affects your maximum hit points, alright? The next thing is your intelligence. Intelligence measures how smart you are. I really don't think I need to explain this to you, so we're going to move on to wisdom. Wisdom is a little bit more abstract. Wisdom affects things like your perception, alright? How you perceive the world around you, how you apply your intelligence to what you see. And then finally you got charisma. Now charisma, I always like to think is how good looking your character is. But really it's more than that. It's actually also how easy they are to, how easy it is to talk to your character, and how good they are at doing things like lying and intimidating and persuading people. So, what you're going to do now is that you're going to have a set of 6 numbers. These numbers are going to determine your ability score modifiers. And the ability score modifiers are the numbers that you add to your dice rolls. And what you've got is you got 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. So those are the 6 basic numbers you've got. This is the basic set of scores that you can use to determine your ability modifiers. There's more about ability scores and modifiers and stuff that you can find in the basic rules or in the player's handbook, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, and we're going to move on to step 4. Now, I really can't stress enough the importance of step 4. Step 4 is choosing your background, where your character came from before they were an awesome adventurer crusading across the forgotten realms of Faerun. Your background is going to give you some additional skills, it's going to give you some starting equipment, it's also going to give you a little bit of money to start off with, maybe even an extra language. The basic rules is going to provide you with a handful of backgrounds, and that would be the acolyte, the criminal, the folk hero, the noble, the soldier, and the sage. Player handbook backgrounds, which is a much longer list. Acolyte, charlatan, criminal, entertainer, folk hero, guild artisan, hermit, outlander, sage, sailor, soldier, and urchin. Each one of these, like I said, is going to give you a certain set of skills, a certain set of equipment. It's also going to give you a certain amount of money to start off the game with. Now, obviously, something like hermit or urchin is not going to give you a lot of money. You're probably only going to get like 5 gold pieces out of that particular background. Now, on the other hand, if you choose to be like a noble, you're going to start off with a lot more gold. You're going to start off with closer to like 25, 30 gold pieces. Like I said, you're only going to get a handful of the selections from the basic rules, and then you're going to get a lot more from the player's handbook. Moving on, we're going to go straight into step 5. Finally, we're on to step 5. And step 5 is actually going to be the easiest step of the entire whole bit here, which is going to be choose your equipment. If you go into the basic rules or you go into the player's handbook and you look at your class, you're actually going to find a list of equipment that you get to choose from to start your adventuring career off with. You're going to get a set of weapons that you get to pick from, you're going to get a set of tools that you either get automatically or that, again, you get to pick from, and then you're going to get a pack, you're going to go ahead and you're going to get your armor. Armor is very important because armor is going to determine your armor class, all right? Armor class determines how hard it is to hit you. You're also, don't forget, going to get some equipment from your background. So check your background and your class for that equipment that you get to choose from. We've taken you now through character creation, and then the next video will be how to fill out your actual character sheet, which you can also download from DungeonsandDragons.com. You can even find a form-fillable PDF that you can just type into on the computer, which is awesome. I use them all the time. They're freaking fabulous. So please, head on over to DungeonsandDragons.com and find the 5th edition character sheet form-fillable. Okay, form-fillable is the important part. It's a PDF. Simple download, and again, it's free. I hope you guys have all liked this video. Head over to Facebook, like my page, subscribe below, and leave some comments for things that I can answer in my next video. I'm Max, Master of Dungeons. Thank you for watching Once Upon a Tabletop. I'll see you next time.